In this mini case, we're going to create a VLOOKUP function without absolute references. Then we're going to sort data. Then we'll create a second VLOOKUP function with absolute values, and then we'll use an if function. So you need to start by downloading MC3 template, and the Canvas page has a link to this particular file. And as we did in Minicase2, we're first going to save this as MC3 and then your initials. So we now change the name of the file. You'll see two tabs at the bottom. We're first going to work on customer orders, a summary. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a VLOOKUP function in E4 that looks at the value in C4 and then returns the order total for that order. It's easier if you start with a real order ID in C4. Then we're going to click on E4, click FX, and then VLOOKUP. Now obviously this was shot on a Mac, so the appearance is slightly different, but what you need to do on a Windows is exactly go through the same steps, and I think it'll be easy, straightforward to see what the differences are. So the VLOOKUP function is the cell in the VLOOKUP value is the cell in which we look for the value to look up. So that in our case is C4. Then the table array is the array of cells that we're going to look into, and we need to make sure that the first column is the one that we could find those values in. So in our case it has to be C7 to E42 rather than A7 to E42, because the customer order is going to be in, the order ID is going to be in column C. Then the next step is to determine which cell this value will be in, and it's column 1, 2, 3. And then finally we want to make sure that we get an exact match, so I will put false in here. So we do done, and we get indeed the value 330, so we change this to a currency. And to test it, we'll just put a different value in here, and it indeed seems to work. The next thing we're going to want to do is order these orders, but we want to order it by order ID. The way you do that is you select all of the cells that you want to order and make sure you include the headers as well. Then you go data, sort, and that brings up a new window. Again, the window will look slightly different in under Windows. Make sure that the My List has headers is checked. And then you click on column, and you see all of the columns that are available to you in this example for you to sort the orders by. We want to sort it by order ID, so we say OK here, and you see that we now have the orders sorted by order ID. Now we go to the other sheet, customer order details. And you see we have a number of empty columns that we're obviously going to try to fill. The first one is price, and you see that we have a pricing table. So obviously the way we're going to do that is look at whatever value is in this case E5, look in this array of cells, and then return column 1, 1, 2, 3 to get the price. So let's write that function. VLOOKUP, we want to look in E5, then we want to look in this array of cells. We want column 3, and we want an exact match. Let me widen this a little bit. And then you see the problem is that as we start dragging this down, we want this set of values to, this array of cells to stay the same. So we have to change this to a absolute reference. Okay, and now we can happily drag this down all the way. Okay, and just make sure, so the last order C1 for Cafe Alma is 16, which is smoked salmon, with indeed a unit price of $17. Now this is a currency column, so we're going to reformat it as such. So go to number, make everything a currency, and then remove the currency symbol. From all the cells that don't need it. All right, so now we have the unit price, and obviously we're going to be able to calculate the total by taking the quantity and multiplying that by the price. And again, we want to reformat that as a currency column, so all these things should become currency. Let me widen it a little bit, and then we remove the currency symbol from all that don't need it. Okay. Now, suppose that we have a policy that if a value is more, the value of this, if the subtotal is more than 1,000, then the shipping cost is going to be the value plus times 2.5% of the value. But if it's less than 1,000, then the value is a fixed 20. So again, I'm going to do that. If this is more than or equal to 1,000, then the value is going to be h5 times 0.025, 2.5%, and otherwise, let me make sure I have it times, and otherwise it's going to be fixed 20. And then we'll drag this down again. Okay, we'll see that it's 20 for almost everything. Since this is a currency column, we'll make this a currency column, so everything becomes a currency, and then we remove the currency from everything that doesn't, the currency symbol from everything that doesn't need it. And now we can calculate the total for the order by adding the subtotal and the shipping cost. And again, we can drag this formula down. And again, we'll format this as a currency symbol, following the admittedly somewhat counterintuitive process of first putting the currency symbol in front of everything, and then removing the currency symbol from those cells that don't need it. And then finally, we want to calculate the total. So we calculate the total from J5 to J47. And then we want to reformat this as a currency as well, because it is an aggregated value. And that completes the mini case.